Hello, everybody. Today we're going to begin our Daphnia experiment. So the first thing you're going to do is go into the week 10 folder and click on the one that says LT2 Daphnia Population Study. And you can see the rubric there. That's going to be kind of how you're being graded on this. And then open with Cami. And of course you should have Cami already in so that you can do this. And then, of course, you're going to log in. It may require you to sign in using your single sign-on for Schoology. It's the same login information. I don't know why it's taking a million years. There we go. And excuse me, what you're going to see here is quite a complicated document with lots of pieces that you're going to fill in as we go. Of course, we're going to do this together, mostly in class, outside of the write-up here, where those parts you're going to fill out on your own based on the information that you get throughout the experiment. So it's really very important that you, excuse me, that you pay attention to what's going on. So today we're going to focus mostly on this first section, and we'll do this part in class, the hypothesis, but right now I'm just going to show you the video of the setup for the Daphnia bottles. Excuse me. Always froggy in the morning.
Hello everybody, we're about to start the Daphnia experiment. So I'm going to show you how to set up a control and an experimental version of these Daphnia bottles. Alright, here we go. Make sure we're looking at everything. There, good, looks good. Alright, so first of all, here's our Daphnia. Recording, yes. Here's our Daphnia, and I'm not sure how well you can see this, but they are swimming around in there. And so what I did was I poured them from the original bottle that we had, which is looking a little green, but they actually kind of like it like that because that means there's a lot of algae in the water, and it means that they have a lot of food to keep them going. This particular Daphnia bottle has been going for several years, so it is a self-sustained ecosystem. Well, it used to be, until I just did that to it. All right, so we're going to set up our new ones. So the first one I have here is the control. And remember that the control is the one that you set up that is going to be as close to the normal conditions as possible. And then this one, I have my experimental. So this is the one we're going to change a variable. We're going to do something different in that particular bottle. Now, in the control and in the experimental, we're going to start by adding exactly the same amount of gravel because that is not our variable. We're going to keep that the same. So what I did is I bought some aquarium gravel from the pet store, and I washed it because you have to wash it, otherwise it comes out kind of cloudy. And I'm going to add 150 milliliters of gravel to the control. I'm going to add the exact same amount to the experimental one. It's about a half a cup. 150 milliliters is roughly half a cup. Good. We're talking milliliters because in reality, milliliters are way more precise than
Speed this up a little bit, so just adding the gravel.
Go in there, but I need to do the other one. So as long as there's just a little bit of gravel at the bottom, we can have a little substrate for them to work on. Now, there we the next thing I'm going to add before I put my Daphnia in is I'm going to put a plant. These are aquatic plants called Elodia. Sometimes people call them anacris. I think it's a similar type of aquatic plant, and you can see here that it is kind of a very leafy green plant. And I'm only going to add, I find the healthiest looking sprig that I can and stick it in there. Uh-oh, look at that. Look at that. Little, oh no, I thought that was a snail. Okay. I'm going to try to control everything that goes in because we don't want, because we're also going to add a snail in a minute. We don't want to add 2 snails because that changes how things go. All right, that was one good looking piece. I guess the same. So sometimes with these variables, you never, with these different things that go into the bottle, they're not going to be exactly the same. Uh-oh. No. Just dropped my snail. Sorry, buddy. I grabbed a couple snails.
So the point is, I'm trying to find 2 snails that are identical to go in there, and that one is a big one, and I couldn't find a second big one. The second big one had died. So now I'm just looking for 2 little tiny baby ones, which is what I'm going to put in to each bottle. 1 little tiny baby snail in each bottle. And snails can grow pretty quick. There we go.
Bottle now has a teeny tiny little snail. So I like putting bigger ones in there, but sometimes it just, you got to work with what you have. So, all right, so we've got, now also notice that I started out with the same exact amount of bottled water. And remember that when you're setting up an experiment, you want to try and keep everything exactly the same. Let's grab it. Everything exactly the same except the one variable that you're changing. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pond water because honestly, if we just use plain bottled water, that adds like 0 biodiversity in there. So I'm going to grab some of this without getting any Daphnia in there. And I want to make sure there's no Daphnia. A little bit more. I want to put about a half a cup. And there's lots of living things in there. Lots of living things in there. Lots of algae and other types of little microorganisms. But I'm not going to put any Daphnia in yet because I want to make sure I'm counting the exact amount of Daphnia. But I do want a little biodiversity. I do want some of that algae. I want some of that the other little creatures that live in there. If you looked closely at the at the bottle, you would notice that there's lots of little things living in there. All right, now the tricky part is to catch 3 Daphnia. I want to start our bottles with each with 3 Daphnia. So here's what we're doing. I'm going to try and catch at least one that looks like it has eggs. Oh wow. I already caught. Oh yeah, one definitely has eggs. So that's 2. I'm going to put those in the control. And I'm going to catch one more. Oh, come on, you guys.
Okay, so at this point I'm just catching Daphnia. I'm trying to just sort of use the little eyedropper to pick them up gently and put them in. So I was able to get 3 kind of mid-sized Daphnia in each bottle. And that's the whole point, is to just make sure that everything is exactly the same, as close as possible. Now, in reality, you may end up with some variation in how fast they kind of get going. All right, so here what I'm doing is, and I'm
So if I
kind
take,
of
and I'm
slow here, so I'm going to speed it up. But the whole point is I'm going to try and I'm going to try and get, like, in the control bottle, I'm going to feed them as much as I would normally feed them, which is about 10 grains of the yeast and 10 to 15 grains. So I feed them this every couple of days. And then in the experimental bottle, I would do twice that. So we're going to see the whole point of this experiment is to feed them different amounts to see which one is able to increase the population the fastest, or to see how it impacts the population. So we're going to look at population growth as a result of the amount of food. So that's the whole point of this part of the experiment. And what they eat is yeast. That's actually yeast. It's the same stuff that you put in that people use to make bread. Okay.
And we're going to just use the same amount of food each time. This is going to get between 10 and 15 grains, and this one's going to get between 20 and 30 grains. And we're going to measure the population and see which population does better over time. What happens to each population. All right, that's it.
All right. So what I want to do now is show you what the 2 bottles look like that are when they're done. And this is just a little quick video showing you. You can actually see the Daphnia.
So here's the result of our 2 bottles. Here's our control. And here is our experiment. I just realized the TV came back on, so it's kind of loud, but oh, that's a little blurry. So you can see down here, or maybe you can't. I'm trying to see if I can focus that so you can see Daphnia swimming down there. See them? There they are. Now, these guys usually hang out at the bottom unless the population gets big, and then they kind of have to be pushed up to the upper water column. I mean, honestly, they're going to try and go wherever there's food. So, yeah, that's it.
Okay, so that's the finished product. And then the last little video I want to show you is what I have them set up in the light. I don't even need to show you it as a video. This is the picture of how I have them set up on my bookshelf so that they're both getting the same exact amount of light. And those are UV bulbs that give more of and they're really horribly bright and obnoxious, but they give it sort of a more realistic sunlight kind of energy. So I'm hoping that keeps them in good shape. All right. Now, as you go through watching these videos, what I'm hoping is that you were listing the materials used to make the Daphnia bottles. So if you didn't do that yet, go ahead and list it. And then what was our independent variable? What was the thing we added differently? And then when we go into class, we'll start talking about this stuff. All right. And then the last thing I wanted to show you right now is that every single time we count our Daphnia, we're going to record the data on this data sheet, and we're going to calculate the population density and the population growth rate. So we'll get lots of practice with that for our population math. So we'll put the date, what day of the experiment it is, and how many Daphnia we have, and then we're going to calculate those two things. And we're going to do this separately for the control bottle and for the experimental bottle. And then eventually what we'll do, once we get all of our data, we'll do a graph and put it here. And then you guys will do the write-up on the results. You'll answer these questions, and that will be your write-up for this. So be paying attention as we go through and make sure that you are filling everything in as we go. And this is not going to be due for several weeks because it will take time for the Daphnia. So just be aware that this is an ongoing project that will take about 5 or 6 weeks. Okay. All right. That is all.